friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be looking at the past quarter of the year, January, February, March, and my reading overall. I'll be answering the questions from the quarter year crisis book tag. I did this video for the first time last year because Roisin's reading made it, and it's a wonderful tag, a set of questions looking back at the first quarter of the year, and I will link the original video down below. So let's kick it off with question one. How many books have I read so far this year? Now it is almost mid-April when I'm filming this, but I'm only counting books read from January through March. And unfortunately, I was so close. I read 49 books. I was so close to 50 and like a whole round number, but 49 books that I read in total. I do count picture books and graphic novels and audiobooks all as reading. In total, I read 37 adult or middle grade or graphic novels and 12 picture books. Question two is, have you already found a favorite of the year or the closest to a favorite? I've only given 3 books 5 stars and a couple of 4.5s, but overall it's kind of been a low few months of reading. I feel like thematically my reading matches what the first 3 months of the year for me were like. I mentioned in my most recent video that I am pregnant, and basically January, February, March was my first trimester and I was really sick and I was really feeling quite awful. Not that my book reading was awful, but for the most part it was pretty meh, average, and I haven't like fallen in love with a book. But the few that I did give 5 stars were Garden City by John Mark Comer. This is a Christian nonfiction all about work, what we were created to do, how we as humans are meant to move about the world. Last month for middle grade March, I picked up Matilda by Roald Dahl. First time reading it, absolutely fell in love with it. The audiobook experience, 10 out of 10, an incredible experience, would highly recommend. This was my only 5-star read last month. And then my favorite picture book so far that I've read has been Farmhouse by Sophie Blackall. This was a beautiful picture book, so lovely, and I'm a huge fan now of this picture book author and illustrator and creator. Question 3 is, are there any 1-star books or your least favorite reads of the year? I just finished a book that I read. Like, I hate it with a passion. It was terrible, but I read it in April, so I will tease you and save that for my April wrap up. But within the first quarter, I think my least favorite adult read, I've DNF'd a couple books, but my least favorite adult read that I finished begrudgingly was Widowland by C.J. Carey. This was a sci-fi alternate history set in the 50s, kind of after the war, as if England allied with Nazi Germany and the Nazi powers kind of took over England. And it follows this one woman, and the premise of it sounded incredible. It sounded really interesting. The execution was a big no for me. It was a big dud. It was very boring. It was a setup to be a series, and I didn't like my time with it. It was a bummer. And overall, my average rating isn't doing too hot. I am due for some really good books in the next at least quarter of the year. I'm hoping to find some more wonderful reads. Maybe more 4-star, 5-star books would be ideal. And I think I'm also feeling better physically. Maybe that will convey itself to reading. I'm not sure. April's not going that great so far, so we'll see. Question 4 is the most read genre so far. I'll put up a picture from Storygraph. This isn't totally representative of just January, February, March because I've already included books I've read in April. But for the most part, my top ones are picture books, middle grade books, historical fiction, and I've read a lot of nonfiction memoirs actually. I definitely feel like this will shift as the year goes on. It's heavily skewed for middle grade because I read a ton for middle grade March. Ever since starting to read picture books last year and counting them, I'm gonna have picture books be the top one all the time just because they're easy to read, especially a lot of, but definitely historical fiction and some form of nonfiction will always be at the top. I definitely need to do more nonfiction reading in general. I like a 60-40 split of 60 fiction, 40 nonfiction. I'm way behind. I think I'm at 25% nonfiction, so I want that to be a lot more going through the rest of the year. I also see myself reading more classics. I feel like I really need to squeeze in maybe a couple fantasy and sci-fi. It won't be the top genres, but I feel like I need to just try some more things, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself. I'm just sort of reading whatever I feel like reading and see how the year goes because that's just my life these days. Question 5 is a book that surprised you. I talked about this one at length in my March wrap up, but that was 11/22/63 by Stephen King. My first Stephen King. I am not a horror girl. I am not a girl that likes scary, creepy books. This is Stephen King's probably most mild book, maybe. I'm not sure, but I was so pleasantly surprised by it. I was surprised by his writing skills and the story, and I was swept away, and I would never in a million years would think that I would read a Stephen King, let alone really like one. One of the favorites of the month last year, so that was very surprising. A book that I was really intimidated by, but at the end was so surprised by how delightful the reading experience it was The Snow Child by Ewan Ivey. I read this in January, and this is not typically the kind of book that I would love. It is a very slow, very character driven. It was such an atmospheric, rich read of a book, perfect for wintertime. time, set in Alaska, a bit magical and whimsical. It was absolutely lovely. I was so pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And then finally, I was pleasantly surprised by The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I don't read too many rom-coms. I read the first one around this time last year, and it was an interesting experience. It was an Emily Henry. I've read about 10 or so now, I think, in total of like my whole reading time in the last year, and most are 3 stars for me. But this one was a great 4-star read, if not maybe even a little higher than 4-star read. It was really fun. I loved the dynamics. It was actually like a couple that I can root for. I liked their friendship. I liked their relationship. It wasn't over the top steamy in any kind of way. It was believable for the most part, and I just had a fun time with it. So thoroughly enjoyed this one. My favorite rom-com that I've read so far. 6 is a book that has come out in 2022 already that you want to read but haven't yet. So I've actually read quite a bit of books that were published in 2023 and last year in 2022, but to be honest, I haven't been truly following 2023 new releases as much, and the ones that have come out that I was looking forward to, I've already read. But there are 3 historical fictions that are on my want to read list that I'm keeping an eye out for, and I've had a few people that I know rate them very highly, so I'm still excited by them. I don't have any plans to read them in the near future per se, but I am still keeping my eye out. The first one is River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. This is a beautiful cover. It's also a diverse historical fiction. I believe it's set in Barbados. I want to read more historical fiction that is not US, UK war centric, and I've heard great things about it. Overall, good rating. Queen of Thieves by B.Z. Marsh. This one sounds fun. I think it's set in London. It has to do with a heist and a gang of women, I believe, that are stealing things. Maybe Ocean's 11 like. I don't know. Could be wrong, but sounds fun. And finally, The Last Russian Doll by Kristen Loesch? Not sure. But this is historical fiction set during the Russian Revolution. I love reading books that are set in Russia or Ukraine or the Soviet Union or have to do with Russian history in any kind of way, because that's my culture background. And I haven't read one in a bit. The last one I read, Gentleman in Moscow, in December, was a dud for me. I know, unpopular opinion. I haven't read one in a bit, so would love to pick this one up. I'm probably most excited about this one out of the 3, but all 3 I'm curious about. Question 7 is, what is a goal you made that you are succeeding at? I don't make too many goals. I made more goals last year and didn't really succeed at them. This year, I didn't really have any specific goals. I did make 23 books to get to in 2023, and for the most part, I'm doing pretty well. I've read 7 out of the 23, so about 30%. A lot of those were buddy reads too, which were really fun. I am participating in the Buzzword Reading Challenge and the Read Your Bookshelf Challenge, and so far have been doing good with both of those. I borrowed this idea from Kristen from Enter the Book last year and did it successfully last year, and still doing it this year, where every month I tried to read a classic, a historical fiction, a nonfiction, a book off my shelves, and a new release. And for the most part, I don't fully think about that every single month, but usually I will cross all of those categories off every month. Also, in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't really need to buy as many books as I did last year. I'm kind of out of room, and for the most part, I haven't bought as many books. I've been pretty good about not bringing in a ton. That being said, I do have a book haul coming up soon. I need to film it because I have acquired a stack of books, not terribly large, since I did my last book haul. And then moving into question 8, what is one goal that you need to focus on and work on? Again, I didn't specifically make some goals, but I do want to read more from my shelves. So in January, February, March, only 25% of reading was from books that I already owned, and I would like that to be higher ideally, because I own so many books. A lot of them, the majority of them, are unread, so I want to change that. I am doing the Rainbow Challenge. I did that video for my spring TBR where I picked a bunch of books off my shelves based on their color, and I let you guys vote. That was so much fun. Thank you for voting, by the way. I'm gonna try to read all of the books that won those votes in the next few months, and I will report back on them in my wrap-ups. But that was a fun idea for me and a way to get more books off my shelves. So I will link that video. It's not too late to vote because I haven't really started reading all of those books yet, so if you still want to vote, you can. And ending with number 9, what are some new to me booktubers or bookstagrammers in 2023 that I would recommend to other people? I'm not a bookstagram person. I mean, I follow bookish people on there, but I don't post anything bookish. I just post about my personal life, and I don't do book talk or any of that stuff. I'm here on booktube, and for the most part, I haven't been keeping an eye out on newish booktubers. Kind of when I come across people by happenstance by luck, or if someone gets mentioned in another video and then I click on them. So it's kind of more by luck. Again, for the most part, the last few months I was not feeling great. I wasn't really like seeking out people or that kind of thing. I was just watching who I already watch and then binging a lot of more TV. But I do want to mention some people because I did this tag last year and I mentioned some then and it was really fun. And I want to mention 4 booktubers, which you probably already have heard of before because other people have mentioned them. But all of these people that I'm going to mention I have found within the last year. I've been watching them for a bit already, but they post videos consistently. I love their content. I love their personalities. And if for whatever reason you haven't heard of them or aren't subscribed, you should go take a look. But the first one is Miriam Elizabeth Reads. I'm sure I discovered her around this time last year. She is a Canadian booktuber. She mostly reads classics, some cozy mysteries, picture books here and there, which I love because not too many people mention picture books, and Christian fiction as well. I really enjoy her personality and she has a lot of good recommendations. Next, I'll mention Novel Idea. She is such a calming presence in booktube and I absolutely love it. She posts videos very regularly. She does a lot of like recent wrap-ups. This is what I've read in the last week or so. I just love her content. I love listening to her speak. She takes her time. She expresses how she feels. She has a super cute corgi dog and she reads very eclectically. I feel like a lot of stuff that I haven't heard of before. She reads a lot of classics, some sci-fi, some fantasy here and there. I feel like, again, stuff that I don't necessarily read. I feel like we most have crossover and some nonfiction here and there, but I love her presence here on booktube. Next, Denise from La Rosa Reads. I met her around June last year because I was in a live with her on Krista from Books and Jams channel. We were reading a Christian nonfiction book together and so I met her through that. She reads a ton of diverse books, mostly books featuring Black characters or written by Black authors, and she always has a really good takeaway from the story or book, even if she didn't love it all the way. She also follows a lot of book club books and book lists, and again, I could say this about all of them. I love their presence here on booktube. And finally, Alana Estelle. She's a bit unique because most of her content is long form single book reviews, which a lot of people don't do anymore, but she loves doing it and they are incredible reviews. They're super eloquent, intelligent. She knows how to put a book review together and I love that her sassy personality comes through. She isn't afraid to say what she thinks about a certain character or the way something was portrayed in the book. We have mutual love of Outlander, but she reads a ton of classics and other historical fiction, some fantasy, even a lot of new books. So she reads eclectically as well. So please check those ladies out if you haven't before. And thank you so much for watching this quarterly wrap-up review of my reading so far. Like I said, it's been mediocre for the most part, so I'm hoping for some better reading in the months ahead, but we'll see. I'm also taking it pretty easy. I'm just mood reading, not putting too much pressure on myself, but I appreciate you guys being here and spending some time with me, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!